Hello again, class. Hello again, class. This is Mr. Smith, and this is cosine law. So in cosine law, I want to draw your attention over to the triangle over here that I circled. In triangle ABC, as we've seen before, the way you're going to do cosine law is actually using this formula right beside it. And you can actually rearrange this formula to solve for an angle. Alright, to get your second formula, what you need to do first is you have to bring over this term underlined in green to the other side. So that's what our first step is. So we're going to rewrite our left side, which is c squared, and because we're bringing over a negative, changes to a positive. So instead of minus 2ab times cos of c, we actually get plus. So instead of negative, we get plus, and then equals whatever's left on the right side. So a squared plus b squared stays there. Our next step is to try and isolate the cos. So we're going to bring c over to here, and because it's a positive, changing to a negative, it's going to be 2ab cos of c equals a squared plus b squared minus c squared. And now to isolate cos all on its own, I'm out of colors. I'm going to use yellow. We need to divide both sides by 2ab and divide all of this by 2ab, and what happens is we're going to cancel this out, so then we just get cos of c equals a squared plus b squared minus c squared, and I'll show you that on the next slide. So as you can see, I rewrote the formula, and I'm gonna box it off in blue. So this is the formula that you would use for finding the angle. Alright, so when to use cosine law, you can use cosine law whenever you have at least two sides and one angle, but I would strongly recommend using it only when you have to, because if you have sine law, it's a lot easier to solve. There's a lot less calculations, and you'll see that in the examples. But the two times you should use cosine law is when only side lengths are known, as you can see in yellow, number 1 here, or when two sides and the angle between are the only known variables. So here, and as an illustration of that, I'm going to underline the variables. So angle A, sides C and B. As you can see, they're underlined in green to better illustrate. Say you knew C, A, and B, then you would use cosine law to figure out the other side length, and then you can use sine law from there. Here is our first example of cosine law. So I have the formula already written down just to keep it nice and simple. I used an X instead of brackets. You can use either or, whatever you find easier for yourself. I'm going to go through this using a blue marker. So first things first, we're figuring out C. C is our unknown. So C here is our unknown. So we're going to solve for C. And it doesn't really matter which side you assign those to, as long as they stay the same. So B will stay that, and A will stay green. And we know what the angle is. Unfortunately, I'm out of colors again. So in this case, I'm using purple to illustrate where that's going. So now we can see where each number is going to and where I'm getting it from. In this case, C is actually just staying C squared. But A is going to become 6.9 squared plus Well, red is our 7.1, 7.1 squared, minus our 2 times AB, so 2, and in brackets I'm going to have 6.9, and then another bracket, 7.1. Then I'm going to have cos of 40. So times cos of 40. We're going to go ahead and calculate this. So we still have c squared equals, and now I'm going to start doing the calculations. So I'm going to pull out my calculator, 6.9 squared. I have a squared button. So I get 47.61 plus, I'm going to pull out the calculator again, and you're going to see a lot of switching back and forth between the two. So 7.1 squared, so 7.1 squared, which gives us 50.41. So 50.41, and then subtract. And I could probably do all these calculations, and you want to be very careful. I'm actually going to start with cos 40 and work my way backwards because that's easier on this calculator. So 40, cos of that gives me that long decimal times 7.1. Alright, so I've multiplied those two final terms. Now I'm going to multiply it by 6.9 times 6.9 equals that. Then multiply that by 2, so times 2, which is our last term. And I'm going to round it to 2 decimal places, so 75.06. So 75.06. All right, now we're going to add and subtract on our calculator. I'm just going to retype this. So I'm going to clear it. So 47.61 plus 50.41 minus 75.06, which gives us 22.96. 22.96. All right, so now to get rid of the squared, we have to just take the square root of each side. So square root that side, square root that side, and that actually eliminates that there. I should use red pen for that to better illustrate that. So side length C is going to equal the square root of 22.96. So I'm going to take the square root of that, and that is, I'm going to round it to 2 decimal places, so 4.79. So 4.79. There we go. So now we know the side length. And from here, we can actually use sine law if we were to try and figure out the other angles, because we would know 2 sides, right? We know the opposite angle and the opposite side of that triangle, because we could use the ratio of 4.79 over sine of 40 to find the other ratios. So here in example 2, we know all the side lengths, but we don't know the angles, and in order to figure out our first angle, we have to use cosine law again. Instead of using the formula from the first example, we're going to use the other formula just so I can show you how that looks. And using magic, there it is. I wrote it out by hand again. Actually, I just copy-pasted, but that's okay. So now we know we're going to use that formula. We can start subbing in. I'm going to use lots of colors so you can see where I'm getting everything. In this case, cos of C is actually going to be cos of A. So wherever there's a C in this formula, I'm just going to write A over it. So this is going to be A here. And wherever there's an A, I'm going to write a C over it. So this is actually going to be a C. This is going to be a C. All we did was just change the letters. Okay. So since side length C is going to be in blue, we'll say that this is C, and A is going to be in green, so this is A, and this is A. And we'll say B is going to be yellow. So B is in yellow. So I'll underline B here so we know where those numbers are going. So because we don't know our left side yet, we're just going to write cos of A equals, well, this is C squared, and I actually underlined it in blue. So this is 3.8 squared plus, what is our B? It's the yellow one, so 2.7 squared minus A, which is in green, so 3.3 squared, all of that over 2 times CB, so 2 times, what is our C? Our C is in light blue, that's 3.8. And times B, which is in yellow, which is 2.7. All right. So now we can actually just use our calculator. Pull that up. I'm going to clear it from our last question. And we're going to get 3.8 squared equals, oh, I guess I should have wrote cos of A first and then use the calculator. So 14.44. And then 2.7 squared. So we get 2.7 squared. If you don't have a square button, you could just multiply it by itself. So that's 7.29. So 7.29 minus 3.3 squared. So 3.3 squared, 10.89. So 10.89. All of that over, well, let's pull the calculator back out. Lots of calculations. 2 times 3.8 times 2.7. All over 20.52. All right. I'm going to need more page room. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the video. So what I did was I just moved the last line from the last slide all the way to the top. Let's continue on with this. So I'm actually going to add the top numbers first. So I'm going to clear this from our last one. So 14.44 plus 7.29 subtract, so minus 10.89, which gives us 10.84. So cos of A is equal 10.84 all over 20.52. Okay, so now we can actually do the division. So now we're going to divide this by 20.52. I get 0.5282, and so on and so forth. Normally I would round this, but because I already have this up, I'm actually going to go back to here. I'm going to show you how we get rid of the cos on that side again. This should be review. So we're actually going to take the cos inverse. So cos inverse and cos inverse. What this does is it cancels itself out there, and then we'll get the angle for A there. So we're going to take the cos inverse of both sides, and because I already did the division here, now all I have to do is punch in cos inverse, and I'll get what A is on my calculator. So I'll end up getting A equals, I made a mistake. My calculator was using rad, not degree, but I fixed it to finish the video. My calculator in rads, you want to make sure it's degree. So I'm going to do this again. 10.84 divided by 20.52, which gives us this long decimal. That was just the numbers in blue over beside the calculator. And now I need to take the cos inverse, so I press the shift key, cos inverse, and then I get 58.11690. So I'm just going to write 58.11 because I'm rounding to 2 decimal places. Degrees. And if you need to round to the nearest degree, you could also say that A equals 58. And I think the textbook asked for that, so I think that would be okay. And that's the end of the cosine law lesson.